Director of Alumni Engagement at the Smith School of Business. Happy New Year to all. I hope you've had a smooth start to 2017. Today's webinar is part of the Smith School Office of Alumni Relations Professional Development Webinar Series. Through these quarterly webinars, we hope to provide thought-provoking and valuable content that will help alumni like you achieve your personal and professional goals. Topics have included influence at work, the science of getting what you want, planning for retirement, and today's topic, declutter your work life to increase productivity. During the webinar, we encourage you to use the chat box to share any questions or comments you might have for the presenter. Please feel free to submit questions throughout the session, and our presenter will answer them as often as possible. And who is our presenter? I'm pleased to introduce Meredith Garcia. Meredith has more than 19 years of experience in private, public, and nonprofit sectors and specializes in developing realistic and sustainable solutions for clients looking to take their personal and professional lives up a notch. She is a dynamic public speaker and successful leader with a proven ability to provide root cause solutions to personal and professional roadblocks of all sizes. In 2011, Meredith founded Up a Notch Consulting, which specializes in solutions for teams and individuals looking to be more productive and effective than they are today. Through group and individual coaching on topics ranging from personal satisfaction and efficiency to professional growth and development, Up a Notch provides its clients with realistic and sustainable solutions, including decluttering homes and workspaces. So now I'll throw it off to our presenter, Meredith.
Hi everybody. Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for having me today. I'm excited to be here. This is definitely my busy season, being January and all the New Year's resolutions, and I'm pleased to be able to spend some time talking with you all today in hopes that 2017 can be even more productive for you than years in the past and possibly one of your most profitable years yet. So you'll notice on the screen this quote from Peter Walsh: "Clutter is not just the stuff on your floor, it is anything that stands between you and the life you want to be living." When working with my clients, I find that their clutter generally can be put into three different buckets. One has to do with their space. The second has to do with the clutter in their mind, which generally comes from relationships. And the third has to do with their schedule. So we're going to focus on those three areas today for you as well. So if any of you have opened up a copy of Real Simple magazine in the last few years, you might have seen a picture that looks something like this when they're talking about how to clean off your desk or how to make your office more organized. And I can tell you today that this is not what I am going for. It's pretty difficult to be productive when you have your paper clips all lined up on your desk. That wouldn't work for most of us. However, I am trying to help you get away from something that looks like this. And for those of you that your desk does look like this or may resonate, this picture may resonate with you, I have some good ideas for you as to what you can do, not only just to tidy up the space, but to still capture all the information that's probably listed on many of those Post-it notes right there. This sure would be nice, and if that's your goal, that's great. Some of you may be thinking this is a little bit more realistic or more of what my office looks like. Whatever your vision is for your space, I want to help you get there. So we're going to start today with some typical questions that I use with my decluttering clients. And this is focused on your space, and today for you all, focused specifically on your office or your desk. So the first question I would encourage you to ask yourself is, how do you want to use this space, and what is keeping you from doing that now? An exercise that I use with my clients frequently is to sit down and think about, where am I today, where do I want to be tomorrow, and how do I fill that gap? And this is the same concept. What is my office doing for me today? What does it look like today? What do I want it to do for me in the future? What do I want it to look like in the future? And how do I fill that gap? The second question I'd encourage you to ask yourself is, what do I want this space to look like? Do you need some, really pretty, inspiring looking space? Are you just more focused on having your desk cleaned off at the end of the day? Do you need all the files that you use regularly actually on your desktop, on the surface of your desk so you can see them and access them? Whatever it is, have a picture in your head of what you want this space to look like. And then get practical. What do you need and want to be able to access and store in your space daily? What is in your space that you don't need or don't need to access that is sitting there and taking up valuable space? And then, why am I keeping this stuff? So the stuff that is just in there because it's in there, do you love it? Do you need it? Do you plan to use it? And if you can't answer yes to any or all of those questions, it's time to stop and think about that item and really figure out what purpose it serves. And then the best one of all these questions is number 6. Will someone else keep or store this for me, or can I find it online later? A lot of the information that we have in our office or on our desk actually can be accessed elsewhere. Now that doesn't mean that that's always the most efficient way to access it. You may not want to have to log into a particular system to see information where you could have it printed out and within, quick grab reach of your right hand. So thinking through, how often do I use this? Do I need to have it printed out? Do I need to have this binder in here? Can someone else store it, or can I find it later? So once you've thought through those 6 questions, and I do really encourage you, and I'll mention this throughout the presentation, I encourage you to take some time, get a cup of coffee, beginning of the day, end of the day, however you like to do it, whenever you can think best, stop and really sit down and answer these questions, plus the others I'll give you later, to figure out where you are today, where you want to be in the future, and how can you actually get there. If you don't take the time to do that, it's like giving a presentation and not preparing. You can probably wing it, but you're not going to be on your A game. You're not going to give the best presentation that you possibly can. So if you really want to do your office and your efficiency levels service, then I would encourage you to take the time and answer those questions. Then actually schedule some time to declutter your office or your desk. And this is where we start. You actually start by clearing off your desk, clearing out your desk. And I do warn all my clients, it gets a whole lot worse before it gets better. So don't do this when you have 15 minutes to spare. Do this when you can either go in on a Saturday or you have a Friday afternoon where most people are out of the office, and it's a good opportunity for you to take some time and take care of your space. So clear your desk. Clean your desk. Actually get this Clorox wipes out, clean it off. There's plenty of pencil marks on there and pieces of scratch paper and everything else that just accumulates over time, even dust. So clean your desk. And then I encourage you to sort and identify the contents. You probably will find that you have things like action items. These are papers or reminders of things that you actually need to do, you need to take care of, projects you need to finish, people you need to call, things you need to follow up on. And then you might find the items to read. No real rush here, but this is a trade publication that came in, or this is something that our school has produced that it'd be good for me to be familiar with, but it's not a rush. So you might have a stack of items to read. You might also have a stack of items related to pending tasks or upcoming projects. So if you are the account or project manager over a certain project within your team, then you might find that you've got files that relate to that project. Well, of course, those are going to be on your desk or in your desk in some way. You probably have stuff you need to file. It's just sitting there and you just haven't taken the time to put it away, but you need to do that. And then you'll probably find you have some junk, some reminders, some sticky notes, even materials from old meetings or conferences that you just, when you walk in your office, you throw it on your desk or maybe on the table behind your desk or the bookshelves, and it just sits there, as well as your supplies. And I'm sure you can think of many other things as you look around. So once you do that, you sort and identify the contents, then the answers to those questions that you did just a few minutes ago really come into play. You start to look around and think, all right, do these materials from old meetings Is that really what I want in this space? Do they fall into the category of what I said I wanted my space to do for me? And if not, what else can I do with them? So once you've sorted and identified the contents, then the fun part is when you get to toss, shred, recycle, or redistribute. Obviously, get rid of the stuff you don't need. Toss it, shred it, or recycle it, whatever is the most appropriate method. And then, of course, redistributing. Now, I want to warn you, I do not encourage you to go and clutter up your coworker's office. That is not the point of redistributing. Redistributing is actually finding the proper place for those materials. So if you have conference materials that everybody in your department might be able to access or might benefit from accessing, then maybe there is a place in the center of your work area where you can store those so everybody has access to them. Maybe you have materials for a program that you handed out when you went and did a presentation, but that's not your program and you no longer need those materials, so you could give those back to the program manager. They might reside in their office. So think through everything that's in there, get rid of what you can, redistribute what you can. And then when you look at what's left, the next step would be to create rules and processes around all of those items. So what do you want to do with incoming mail? What do you want to do with outgoing material? When you finish a task and you've got pieces that you need to distribute to others, where are you going to put those things? If you create rules for yourself, including when am I going to file all these items that need to be filed, when am I going to read those items that are of no rush, then that will allow you to follow a process that allows you to create a system that then gives you the opportunity to maintain that nice, clean, or relatively clean desk that you're looking for, an organized office that you might be looking for. Now, there are differing opinions on filing and reading and incoming mail, and I'll just give you some insight on a few of them. One is don't touch your mail more than once. So you either act on it, read it, recycle it, or file it as soon as it comes in. Another school of thought with that might be, that's not the most efficient use of my time. I need to be working on another project right now, not acting on this piece of mail that came in, not RSVPing for this conference or this meeting, not submitting a purchase request for my coworker. That form was in my inbox. So creating some rules around your schedule will be helpful. I encourage you to schedule in blocks, and I'll talk about this a little bit more in just a minute, but multitasking is not always the most efficient way to operate. So when you think about your rules and create rules that work for you, think about what kind of time do I have to focus on incoming mail, to process requests, to file items. Maybe I file on Friday mornings. I sit down, I give myself 20 minutes, and I take everything out of the file folder, and I file those items, and then I put the folder back on my desk, and throughout the next week I accumulate more things to file. You have to figure out what works best for you. If doing it right away is the best option for you because then it's done and over with, great. If you like to do your work in more block type fashion, then that's fine too. The key here is for you to create a rule and a process that works best for you. And I will tell you that I find with many of my clients who are adults that suffer with some sort of ADD tendencies, those rules are absolutely critical. And then they're very good at following their rules, but we have to set the rules first. So think about that as you move forward in this process. The next step is then to refill your desk with purpose. So you put back those items that you need to access daily, and you put them in a place where you can easily access them daily. If you have file drawers and you like to keep your files in those drawers, then the files that are in that top right-hand drawer or top left-hand drawer, wherever is most convenient for you, should be the ones that you access regularly. The ones that you access occasionally or even just once a year, or maybe just because of the nature of your job you must keep them in your office, like HR files, those should not take up valuable real estate. Those should be filed away in the back of a drawer or even in a file box, maybe on a bookshelf, since you don't need to access them daily. And then here's the key: once you get everything put back the way you like it, is to educate all involved in your new rules and your processes. So if you have somebody that works for you, that brings you your incoming mail, that brings you purchase requests, or that comes into your office and maybe does filing for you, you need to share with that person your new rules that you have set for yourself so they can do it your way. Doesn't do you any favors if you go through this whole process and then you don't actually share it with anybody and they come in and they mess it up and they don't even realize they're messing it up. So a key component to this is to share with others your new rules. And one good piece of that is by doing that, you may actually help some of your coworkers who are struggling with the same efficiency issues that you were struggling with before. They may benefit from those same rules and processes. And then last but not least, follow your own rules. So it's great job security for me when clients say, I've let it all go. I need you to come back and help me again. And what I end up doing is putting some of my clients on just a monthly visitation schedule where I either follow up with them by phone or follow up with them in their home or office and just help them get everything put back together. That constant reminder, that constant accountability helps them stay a little bit more focused on their own rules and following them. But most importantly, it allows them to keep their office or their home in a state that makes them feel good and comfortable and gives them the breathing room that they need to be efficient in different areas of their life. So those are the 8 steps to decluttering your desk. A couple of things that I'd like to just call to your attention are some tips to avoid common clutter. And if you are not interested in doing the massive clean out of your desk, here are some things to consider. If you are an individual that likes to write reminders down on little post-it notes and put them all over your desk, one option for you to keep all of those in one place, because post-it notes do lose their stickiness, do fall behind a desk, do get lost in a hallway from one office to the other, tend to get lost in our car when we move from point A to point B. So one option for you would be to transfer those reminders into a notebook, a spiral, a tablet of paper, however you like to keep a master to-do list. That's just a running to-do list. It's a running opportunity for you when you have 10 minutes to look down and see, what do I need to get done? Which of these items can I accomplish in the next 10 minutes? I'll actually refer back to this master to-do list at the end of our presentation when we talk about decluttering your schedule. But this process works well for many of my clients because they can just flip back a few pages and see what it is that they missed, or even keep notes of when they completed that task if that comes into question later. Another tip to avoid common clutter is to designate a central location for manuals, agendas, and meeting materials within your office. So if you work in a stereotypical 9 to 5 or 8 to 6 or 10 to 10 office, you probably have a common space where things like this could be stored. And the great thing about using your common space for shared material is that it creates a library for everybody in your office or your department. What you don't want to happen is for it to become a dumping ground. You want people to use that material, and if you find that it's not being used, then maybe it's time to recycle it. And this allows you to involve the other people in your department or office in this process. You will encourage them to get that stuff out of their office and put it in a central location. It also allows you to have the conversation about what is important information. Do we need to store this? Do we need to keep it? Some of my clients do well when they say, I just came back from a conference. The materials will be sitting in this designated space for the next 2 weeks. Anybody who wants to look at them and access them can. I will recycle it after that, or I will scan it and store it on the shared drive after that. So for those of you who don't want to keep paper copies, then maybe scanning and putting that information in a shared location where everybody can access it electronically is just as valuable. Well, but I will tell you that electronic clutter is no different from tangible clutter. If your shared drive is just as cluttered as that bookcase in that shared space, people still are not going to access that material. So you really should treat it the same as far as going through it regularly, purging it, and really deciding as a group what is valuable and what do you need to keep. The last tip I'll share with you is to schedule your time for your action items, set a timer, and then put your materials away when you're done. And away may just be on the side of your desk. It doesn't have to be in a binder or in a file drawer, but set that stuff aside. Studies have shown that multitasking is actually not the most efficient way to work. More studies show that if we work on one project for a designated period of time and give it all of our attention and all of our focus, we will work better and smarter and be much more efficient and productive than if we're trying to do that plus two other things, maybe a conference call and write a report and focus on this project. So I encourage you, and I encourage a lot of my clients to actually use a timer. Many of us get distracted. Many of us don't want to be away from our email for an extended period of time, or maybe some of us want to be away from our email for an extended period of time. So if you think I could use the next 20, 30, 60 minutes to work on this task, and I've got that availability in my schedule, then set your timer. Do not answer your emails. Do not answer your phone. Work on this one project. That will allow you to keep all of your materials for the project together. You can focus on it. You can put them all back together at the end and put them aside. Then everything is together and ready for you the next time you have the opportunity to work on it. All right. So that is your desk, your office, your space. And I will tell you those exact same questions, that same process can be used for any of the rooms in your home, could be used for a storage room in your office. Please use that material and translate it to other areas of your life where maybe you have more clutter than others. Our space has so much to do with our productivity, which is actually how my business took a very random right turn into decluttering homes and businesses. I was doing a lot of efficiency coaching, and it became very apparent it wasn't so much the person, but it was their space, and it was the process that they were going through on a regular basis to accomplish their tasks that were the real problem. And so I have found that if our space helps us and works for us, we can be productive. If our stuff is scattered everywhere, if we start to really choke up when we walk into a space, or if we just can't breathe because there's so much stuff and junk around us, there's no way you can be productive. So do yourself a favor, schedule 30 minutes, 60 minutes, an afternoon to really focus on your space. What is it that I need to do to give myself the breathing room, the mental space to then be able to work efficiently on the tasks in front of me? All right, so let's move on to the second area of typical clutter that really affects our effectiveness, and that's your mind, which really relates to the relationships, and how we're going to talk about it today is your team. So if any of you have ever worked in a place where the org chart looked a little bit like this, your office probably felt a little bit like this. The coworkers around you probably ran around like they were in a beehive because everybody is doing so many different things, and many people may not be aware of what they're doing, how it affects others, what the real expectations of their work are, and how should they be doing it. It can be productive for a short period of time, but it is definitely not a recipe for long-term success. So how do we declutter your team? How do we get your team to a point of absolute efficiency? And the questions are very similar to your space. And this has to do with, again, looking at really where am I today, where do I want to be in the future, and how do I fill that gap? So for your team, I encourage you to ask yourself, on a scale of 1 to 10, how effective is this team? And the second step in that is to defining what a 10 is. What does that look like? So that's the where do I want to be piece to that first statement that I made. And then you think about, how do I fill that gap? And you may be thinking, what does your team have to do with your mind? Well, if any of you have ever worked in or around a human resources department, or if any of you have ever managed a team, then you know that personnel issues and lack of productivity from your team members occupy a huge amount of your time. which means they occupy a huge amount of your mind and your space as far as thinking through what it is I need to get done today, how am I going to accomplish my tasks. Not only do they take up the mental space, but they take up space on your calendar. So taking the time again to step aside, step out of your daily whirlwind, and really focus on where my team is today, where I want them to be, and how can I fill that gap so I don't have to worry about personnel or productivity issues will be beneficial to you as a team leader. So number 4, what is the team doing right now that they don't need to do? This is very common in organizations that have grown quickly or organizations that their change in goal or focus have changed quickly due to market trends or due to new leadership. Maybe you're still doing something that you don't need to be doing. Maybe they're still running reports that nobody looks at. Maybe they are still answering the phones for another department, but now there is an office manager that could do that for you. So really taking a look at not just the team members, but the tasks that those team members are doing. And then focus on the team member themselves. Is each of those team members productive and providing value? The reality of the workforce is not everybody on our team is doing the best job they could possibly do. Not everybody on our team is really operating at that top-notch level. If you want to be the premier of whatever it is that you do, of whatever service that you provide, if you want to be that premier service provider, then your people have to provide premier level service. And if they're not doing that today, why not? What could they do to get there? Do they need more training? Are they in the wrong job? Do you realize that they're a real problem and you just haven't wanted to address it, and so you haven't addressed it? And here we are today in a situation where it's not benefiting your team at all. Those are things to think about. And number 6 are the roles, goals, and tasks in alignment. And I will tell you there are some pretty straightforward ways to think about number 6. I'll give you a couple of examples here. If you look at your team by role, then you can actually outline, okay, Joe on my team here is a project manager for Project A. The goals of those projects that he works with are as follows. And you lay out the role, and this is what it is that your department does, whatever project it is, the goals of that project, and then which staff members are involved, and then which tasks do those staff members do that then help you obviously accomplish those goals and fulfill that role in your organization. So the role relates to your organization. The goals really relate to what is it that the people on your team are doing. You identify those people and you identify their tasks. You can flip it around and look at it by staff member as well. Start with the staff member. Which of the goals of your department relate to that staff member? What is it that they do for you? What tasks do they do that relate up to each of those goals? And then what is the actual output of their work? And this is very telling. If their output is to make sure that payroll is processed every single Thursday, and that's not happening, then you realize that you have a performance issue with one of your team members. If that is happening every week, then that task and that output are working. That's aligned, and that's good. You can check that one off your list. Another way to do this is to actually, and I love the sticky note version, which is to list on a whiteboard or a bulletin board or even just tape it up on the wall, the different roles within your department or organization, and then the tasks that fall under each one of those. And you'll begin to see that the person who fulfills this role of, and you can see on the screen here, office manager, they have many more sticky notes than the sustainability manager. Well, does that work even out as it should? Doesn't mean that everybody's have to be even and you need to redistribute work, but this is a very telling way to figure that out. Do we need to redistribute work? Do I have people doing things that they don't need to be doing anymore? It really makes more sense for it to fall under somebody else's tasks or responsibilities. And again, when organizations grow, when they change, new leadership, transitions, when employees leave and new people come in, things get all jumbled up. And so if we don't take time to think about it and actually make sure we're in alignment, it's very easy to get off track. So these last few slides that I've just shown you and these questions all are great tools for you to use in your next team building retreat or staff development day, which I hope you all do fairly regularly with your teams. Your staff, your teams are just as much responsible for making sure that your department is running at its highest level of efficiency as you are. So how do you involve them in that? Well, you give them these 6 questions. You talk about it as a group. You start to map out the different roles of your department or your organization and how the goals of the organization or your department line up with that. Then you look at it by staff member. Then you look at each task related to each staff member. It's a great way to highlight expectations as well. And I will tell you that the expectations that you have for each of your staff members, which translate into these tasks and the output that I just mentioned, should align with the job descriptions that you have for each of your positions, as well as the performance reviews that you have for each of your positions. If all of those things don't line up, then you're not telling people what you need from them, and you're not measuring them against those same expectations. And that doesn't work in the long run. Basically, that just means, hey, we want you to do this, but we're not going to really follow up if you do it. So if you really want to have a well-run, self-managed work team, which is great because then you can take a week off and go to a resort in Mexico and not worry about what's going on in the office, or take a month off and travel Europe and not worry about what's going on in the office. Everybody is informed as to what is expected of them. They know how to do it because you've trained them to do it, and you're measuring them on their effectiveness, which then requires follow-up training if they're not meeting those expectations. So it's a well-oiled machine and really it's a great recipe for long-term success. So what is some team clutter that might be a little less obvious and more difficult to address? The first one is the anchor. This is that person who keeps your team from moving with the natural current of change. This may be the person that's been there for 15, 20 years, that's experienced 4, 5, 10 different leaders, and is like, I'm not going to jump on this bandwagon because it's going to change in 2 years when this guy leaves. Or this might be the person who is just quietly, secretly, not necessarily sabotaging the department, but maybe is pretty passive-aggressive and doesn't share knowledge like they should to help others move forward, or isn't going to be the reliable one when everybody needs to show up at 6 a.m. to set up for an event on a Saturday morning. They all of a sudden have the eye infection and can't drive, or the migraine headache, or whatever it is. This is the person that you really just can't rely on to go with the flow and be a real team player. You tend to question their motives. The next one is the bad apple. This person is a little bit more obvious. They tend to default to a negative reaction or place. They usually place blame and rarely accept responsibility. They tend to be fairly vocal, and they tend to be a real downer. Team meetings are difficult at times with this bad apple because they bring the mood down, they keep people from being excited about what's in front of us, and they definitely damper that spirit of, wow, we're in crunch time, this is going to be hard, but we as a team are fully prepared to make this happen. And then the last one is not necessarily a person, but it's that busy bee, unproductive work. Unproductive meetings, rarely read reports, outdated, inefficient tasks. And this happens when, not only when people get complacent, when leaders get complacent, but also when individuals are just not excited about what they're doing. And so they don't stand up and say, why are we doing this report? We've done it for 15 years and nobody reads it. Or why are we producing an annual report that is still all text? The trend now is to do graphics and visual displays so that people are more engaged and want to read more things. And this causes people to not be innovative and not take initiative. When you as a leader send a message that this unproductive work or busy bee work is just standard and status quo or what we do here, then people lack that courage and lack that interest in really stepping up and saying, I can make this better, let me show you how. So if you are the leader of a team, I encourage you to address all three of these issues if you have them. And here's the biggest reason why. Because your most efficient and productive team members will leave if you don't address this. It will drive them crazy. It will drive them crazy enough to look for another job. So if you don't address the issues with that anchor, if you don't tell the anchor, listen, it's time to get on board or we need to come up with other options for you, if you don't call that bad apple out, I don't encourage you to do that in front of others, but if you don't pull them in your office and call that bad apple out and tell them you need to see an attitude change or we're going to have a personnel issue on our hands, those great, strong, powerful employees who have initiative and who are the ones who could run your company in the future will leave because they'll go and find a workplace where somebody will address those issues. The last thing you want to do is lose the individuals who are fully qualified and capable of taking your place in the future when you find something bigger and better to move on to. I encourage all of you as leaders to always look to hire your replacement before you ever even leave. You want to have people who have as much vested interest, love for your organization, the mission, the passion, all of that, as well as that same level of efficiency that you do, if not more, on your team. It's definitely not a threat. It will actually free up the time in your mind and on your schedule to get the work done to be the most efficient leader and employee that you could possibly be. All right, so the last of the three areas of decluttering your work life so you can be more efficient this year is actually your calendar. The calendar it's really all relative, but I want to share with you just a quick story from, and many of you have heard it, from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. You probably remember that exercise that you've seen Stephen Covey do over and over and over again, where he gives somebody a bucket of rocks, a bucket, and then an empty bucket, and another bucket that's full of big boulders and little pebbles, and he tells her to get it all in this other bucket. And she dumps it over, and the pebbles go in first, and then the big rocks don't fit. And he says, put your big rocks in first, then pour your pebbles on top, and voila, everything fits. So I'd like you to think about your schedule. I'd like you to think about what's important to you. What are your big rocks? And those are work rocks as well as personal rocks. All of us at work have big projects, big tasks, big responsibilities that we need to make sure we accomplish and get done. Those warrant time on your schedule. Those warrant focused, uninterrupted time on your schedule. And then all of us at home have roles and responsibilities that equate to those big rocks. All of us have things we want to do in our lives, like travel, read, exercise, that also equate to big rocks that we want to fit into our schedule. Again, all of those are worthy of focused, dedicated time on our schedule. And then, of course, we all have the pebbles that we must fit in. Those are the fires at work. Those are the reports that we hate doing, but we must do. Those are the board meetings that are important to the organization as a whole, but not necessarily your favorite thing to do. And then we all have the pebbles from our home lives, too. Maybe it's driving your children to and from their soccer or baseball practices. Maybe it's volunteering and things that you actually enjoy doing, but they aren't major roles and responsibilities, but you still have to fit them in. You still have to fit them in, and most of us want to fit a lot of that into our lives. So how do you do that? Well, you have to start by really looking at your schedule right now. What is on there that is just pure clutter? What's on there that you don't need on there? More importantly, are you just not scheduling those things that are important? Is that part of the problem? Is that why you are not able to accomplish what you want and need to accomplish at work and at home? Many of my clients come to me because they can get it all done at work, but they cannot get it all done at home. They just cannot figure out a way to organize their home schedules, to get people where they need to be, and get dinner made if that's what they choose to do, or pick dinner up, and spend 2 to 10 to 65 minutes at the end of the day to themselves or with loved ones just enjoying life. So I want you to look at your schedule right now. A, are you using it? And B, what's on it? And then I want you to ask yourself this first question. How do I want to use my time, and what is keeping me from doing that now? Again, that's that. Where am I today? Where do I want to be in the future? And how do I fill that gap? So second, what is consistently being overlooked? You know, I really want to do yoga 3 times a week. It's not happening. It never happens. I'm always too busy. Are you really too busy, or are you not scheduling it in? Because some people will actually drop their son at soccer practice and then go for a walk in that neighborhood wherever soccer practice is. It's not yoga, but they're still fitting in their exercise, and then they come back and soccer practice is over, and they go home and they do whatever it is they need to do. Is it that marketing or maybe strategic plan that's been sitting on the corner of your desk for 6 months, 8 months that nobody's really asking for? So it's obviously not critical, but you're consistently pushing it aside, you're consistently overlooking it. Well, maybe if you just blocked out 1 hour a day or 1 hour a week for the next few weeks to focus on that, you would make great strides, and then it would become a much easier project to tackle on a more regular basis. So what is consistently being overlooked? Are you actually scheduling your priorities? If your schedule right now is full of meetings, what meetings are those? Are they all effective? Are they all necessary? We don't all have control over what meetings we are invited to or required to attend, but we definitely all have control over how we spend our time outside of those meetings. And if you do have the ability to say, I don't need to be at that meeting, or if you do have the ability to delegate that to somebody else who would get more out of it, or who can go in your place and make sense on their schedule to do it, then do that. Open up your schedule where you can. Number 4 is the most difficult, I would say, and that's honoring your schedule. So you could put yoga on your schedule 3 times a week. You could put the strategic plan on your schedule for 1 hour a day, 3 days a week, and easily skip those when there's a fire that comes up at the office. So if you do that, or your child gets sick, that's just as legitimate of a fire as when something comes up at the office. You can do that, you can skip it, but if it's that important to you, then you really should reschedule it for another day in the immediate future. If you just skip it and don't give it another thought, then you're not honoring your schedule, and maybe it's not as important to you as you thought it was or you want it to be. And then you have to decide, do I want it to be that important enough that it takes a place on my schedule, and I'm committed to leaving at whatever time during the day to go to that yoga class, or I'm committed to closing my door or putting a sign on my cubicle that I'm working on a project and focusing on that strategic plan? Are you honoring your schedule? And if not, the big question is why. And only you can answer that. And the more honest you are with yourself, the more effective this process will be. And then number 5, the best one, what can I let go of? What do I keep telling myself is so important that I need to do, but really nobody's asking for that strategic plan. It's not critical for my small business that I'm running, or it's not critical because we're going to hire a consultant in March to do that for the whole organization instead of my department, and I can wait until they've done theirs to then figure out how my department falls in line with that strategic plan. What can you let go of? And for those of you that are, just as busy at home with volunteering and children and everything else as well as at work, where are you spending your volunteer time, and is that an effective use of your time? Is that fulfilling for you? Where are you and your kids going after school every day? Where are you and your children, where are your children spending your time, because that takes up your time? And is that the best place for them to be? Is there stuff that they're doing that you can let go of as well? It's really beneficial to take a comprehensive look at your calendar, your schedule, personally and professionally, to figure out what's the best move for me here. And I'm telling you folks, if you want to get it done, put it on your schedule and make it happen. Because number 6, Oprah said this January of last year in one of her Weight Watchers commercials, and it just resonated with me. If not now, when? if you keep putting off the hope of traveling, getting the strategic plan done, addressing issues at work that need to be addressed, and once they're addressed, your life will be so much better. If you keep putting off all of that, if you keep putting off taking some time at home, getting up 30 minutes earlier to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish, closing your computer at night so you can sit at the dinner table and spend family time, whatever it is, if you're not going to do that now, then when are you going to do it? Really, when is it going to happen? And if this is tax season for you or decluttering season like it is for me, some things can wait until March, but I'm going to put them on my schedule for March. But if it's not your busy season and if you're just continuing to put it off, then I would ask you, really, why is it on any of your lists anyway? Why is it taking up space in your brain and, hopeful space on your calendar or in your schedule if you're just not going to take care of it? If it's that important to you, then make it happen. So tips to avoid some calendar clutter. The planning weekly and daily is the best and most efficient tool that I've ever used and that I share with most of my clients. Once a week, sitting down and really looking forward, looking at your master task to-do list that I mentioned earlier, figuring out what all those little action items are that you have, how are you going to get this done, and actually putting those on your calendar. That allows you, numbers 1, 2, and 3, really allows you to schedule those priorities. So you look at the upcoming week, and then you think, okay, what am I going to do today? What can I do on the next day? What can I do in the following day? What can wait until Friday, Saturday, or Sunday? Or some of you would like, some people plan Monday morning, some plan Sunday night, some plan Friday for the following work week. Whatever works for you. Pick a time, plan weekly, and then every day you revisit your daily plan because things change, right? Meetings come up, fires happen, children get sick, there are things you have to do. That master task to-do list is very helpful in this weekly and daily planning process. It just allows you to keep all of those action items in your mind. And some of those may continue to get pushed out, but as long as they stay on your master to-do list, they're not falling off your radar, which is the important thing. And there's no reason why you can't schedule some of those things months out, months out. And once you get in the process of doing that, eventually you'll get rid of that master task to-do list because it won't be necessary anymore. You won't have this backlog of items. You'll automatically start putting things on your calendar for next week or next month or a year from now, whatever is best for you. Leave white space on your calendar because I'm not sure about you, but very few of my days go as I have planned. So being able to shift things around on my calendar, okay, I can't read this article right now, but I could do it today at 4, or I may have to move that to tomorrow. That white space allows you that flexibility. Now, if you're in meetings all day long, then don't schedule anything else for that day because you're just going to have to catch up on emails and voicemails in between your meetings. There's no point in giving yourself 3 other things to do if it's not realistic that you'll actually get them done. You want this to be a realistic process so you can feel and be successful. And last but not least, like I mentioned earlier, honoring your schedule. Your time is limited here on Earth. If you really want to accomplish your goals in life, what's most important to you, your priorities, the stuff that makes you feel good, with the people that make you happy, you have to plan accordingly. That doesn't just happen and it doesn't just fall into space. So I encourage you to find 30 minutes a week, 5 minutes a day to really think through your weekly and your daily plan to help make all of those things happen. So I want to leave you with a quote, organizing is what you do before you do something so that when you do it, it's not all mixed up. If there's one tip that I can leave you with today that really resonates across all of the different areas that we discussed, it is that preparation is key. So taking the time to prepare for a meeting, taking the time to prepare for what's next tomorrow, taking the time to prepare in the car for what you're about to encounter at home will allow you to have a plan and accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. That's how you can get it all done. I encourage you also, to not get caught up in, okay, we only do this in January, and I'm not, come March, come June, it's all messed up again, or I gave it up, I can't do it again. That is absolutely not the case. There's no reason that we all have to reboot ourselves in January and January only. Reboot yourself weekly, daily, monthly, however often you need to do it. Keep trying, keep working to find a system that works best for you. All right, so that's the end of my presentation, but I'm happy to take any questions that you might have. One question that I got from another group that may be of interest to you all was, how do I address electronic clutter and emails and filing of emails and things like that that come in? And I would tell you to treat it just like they were pieces of paper. If there are things you need to keep, then you bucket, organize them. Maybe it's per project, maybe it's per child, maybe it's per, role in your life. Other individuals may be better off leaving them in their inbox. That's really overwhelming for some. So I would encourage you to think of it as if they were pieces of paper. Each one of those emails were a piece of paper. How would you organize those? Would you put them in file folders? Would you leave them in a stack on your desk? What is the most effective method for you? The key to any system is, how can I find what I'm looking for quickly? So if you know that that came in an email 3 months ago, how can I quickly go find that email? If you know that that report was uploaded and is in a shared space online 6 months ago, was it filed in a place online so everybody knows where it is and can find it? I encourage you to think about all things electronic just like you would as if they were tangible. Electronic clutter is just as overwhelming and useless as tangible clutter is. Any other questions? Well, if not, Jeff, I'll turn it back over to you.
Great. Thank you very much, Meredith. I think it was a really informative session. Hopefully lots of our Terps on the phone, and we're able to take home some tips to make 2017 their best year yet. So thank you to all of our Terps who attended today's webinar. We hope you'll join us for the next one on March 29th at noon Eastern Time, a session called Small Business Marketing, Creating Customer Love. That's it. Thanks very much, everyone. Have a great day, and go Terps.